All right, everybody, back with another one. Today, we're going to take a look at something really interesting that I think you will like, and something that has been long waited for if you look at history and everything that has unfolded since the 60s in this country, and something that I said on the last episode I would take a look at and do a follow-up episode on, and that is the Martin Luther King Jr. files. This follow-up to my previous video, but this is a deep dive into the release of the files, and I'll show you the website where they are currently available for anybody to take a look at, the National Archives, and you can take a look at them on your own time. I will show you a couple of them just so you can see what they look like. They're really illegible. They're hard to read and hard to follow. There's about 230,000 pages of these release documents that the Trump administration put out just a few weeks ago. It's a deep rabbit hole. You really have to dig through them, and you have to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. This is an extremely time-consuming project, so I didn't do it in the way that I normally would because it's extremely time-consuming and the cost benefit wasn't there for me in terms of getting to the bottom of this conspiracy. I kind of have an idea as to what had happened over the last, couple decades, decade or so of my life, just knowing about this conspiracy and learning about it over the years and hearing the many different theories and, some of the evidence that was presented and, some of the people that whistleblowers that had come out and talked about certain things and in relation, this was one of them. So I've heard enough over the years to kind of get a general idea as to what probably happened. And you'll never really know because most of the people involved are dead now. So you really can't go back and ask the original eyewitnesses about their testimony or people that, weren't eyewitnesses giving testimony or people who were involved that didn't talk about it before they died. You'll never really truly get to the bottom of a lot of this stuff. But I did it in a different way that I think you might like. And we'll talk about that in a minute. What I do want to say is something like this it's a good thing that Trump released it, but it can also be something that many people in America don't need in the sense that with the advent of the internet and social media especially, and then all of these files over the last couple decades, file sharing and ease of access to stuff like that, hackers leaking things over the years, WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, Edward Snowden bringing all that stuff out about the NSA, and so many things. This has been an amazing blessing for this country, where they have been able to reveal a lot of the deep dark secrets that the government was keeping from us about their, wicked ways, the ways that they were doing things that were clearly unconstitutional, but also clearly illegal against the law. And many of these people should have been, brought up on their crimes, on charges, and tried and convicted for these, crimes, but they weren't. They got away with it, many of them. Some of them are old today, and the government would probably not pursue them, or they're dead because this happened so long ago. It's a good thing that it's coming out now because enough time has passed where the situation is diffused for those people who are probably guilty parties or they're gone already. But it's a bad thing because you do want to get justice in the moment, in the time. And the fact that they held on to this for so long is a shame and also is wrong and can be seen as, well, when you get into the documents and everything that happened, clear treason against the American people. So, but there's a bad side to all of that stuff where they leak documents, they expose these conspiracies to the American people. Now, we have the right to know because we are the government. We the people. But our founders also said that our way of governing is a system that's designed for a well-informed people and a people who are morally righteous, people who are, because at that time they were carrying on their legacy of their ancestors who were morally righteous and who had the right to self-govern by God, not because the government said that it was okay or some authority figure told them that it was okay, but because God saw those people as fit to govern themselves because they had done such a great job at living good, pure, moral lives that He entrusted them with that. That was supposed to continue on throughout the generations, but it didn't. Somewhere along the line, enough time passed, people forgot about the things their ancestors taught them, the wisdom, and they stopped reading the Bible. And eventually, we are still a self-governed society, technically, but we don't we're not responsible with that. We don't actually govern ourselves the right way. And so that's why we're falling from grace in this country and we are losing our blessings because God is only going to allow us to continue to govern ourselves if we're responsible enough to do that. And if we're being put through that test right now, we will see if we end up making it, if America continues on to be a nation that gets to be self governed. Freedom too. There's an old saying that freedom isn't free, and that's true in the sense that you have to fight for your freedoms in order to keep them. So you do have to sort of earn the right to have those freedoms by standing up for them and giving everything you have to keep them. But at the same time, freedom is something that comes from God, and we don't have a right to it inherently. We have a right to it because we do the right things and God is blessing us with freedom as one of our blessings because we've shown Him that we are responsible enough and deserve it. So this story of America is going to continue on, and we're going to see which way it goes because right now we're at a crossroads. We're either going to go in a direction of continuing the legacy that our ancestors built, or we're going to be a nation that goes off the rails and sinks, and we will be a memory and just another note in the history books. It's up to the people to decide if they want to continue to do things the right way and to follow in the footsteps of their ancestors and live moral and righteous lives. But besides that, not to get all philosophical, the files were released. It's a good thing because Americans deserve transparency and they deserve the right to know. But it could also be a bad thing because there's a lot of these files, and this could be an opportunity for a lot of people out there to waste a lot of time digging through this stuff to try and get to the bottom of it and crack the case and feel like they're, listening to some True Detective podcast or on watching a murder mystery movie and feel like they've accomplished something. But it could also be a huge waste of time. People are always bragging online about how they went down these rabbit holes. A rabbit hole can also be a huge waste of time. It can also be something that you waste time in your life on that is irrelevant to you and it doesn't better your life in any way, but instead you give that time away, which is a currency that you could not get back. You don't get any more time in life. You lose time and you could have been doing something else to better your life. So not only is this thing a negative impact on your life because it's something that was not right that the government or somebody did to the American people. But now you're doubling down on that by wasting time getting lost in it when you could be doing something else good with your life and you could be taking a negative and turning it into a positive. So that's just a little pep talk for the people out there that are very deep in conspiracies. I've been down that road myself. I've gone through just about everything there probably was at the time to go through. And I've come to the conclusion that yes, this world is a shady place. There's a lot of crazy things that go on, and there is a lot of secrets that are held for lifetimes. And as Americans, we do have the right to know the ones that affect us. But there comes a point where it's not beneficial anymore to know everything. Learn everybody else's secrets. What does it gain you? Nothing. You get to gossip about them. You get to get a peek behind the curtain and just know what somebody else doesn't know. So it gives you a sense of feeling like you have some sort of moral authority or you have secret knowledge that they don't have. But after a while, it starts to consume you and become your God. It starts to become something that you worship in a way where you give all your time and energy to it. And as you're doing that, you're not watching the clock pass by. Time is passing you by. And then you wake up in years to come and you say, what did I do with all that time? I just spent it learning all this stuff and finding out all these things. Okay, great. Now I know all this stuff. What good is it? What does it do for me in my life? How has it benefited me or anybody else around me? 9 out of 10 times, it hasn't. And that's where a lot of people went with these Jeffrey Epstein stuff. I understand completely. I made my case about that in a previous video. With the Martin Luther King thing, it's very similar. The people wanted to know what actually happened, even though most people had assumed what they thought had happened, which actually turned out to be true. And the files pretty much, disclose this. But even after going through as many files as I could and then doing the next thing, which I did, which I'm going to discuss in a minute, nothing really surprised me or impressed me And nothing that I discovered changed my mind about pretty much anything that I think today, and it didn't change my life in any way. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and go on with my day as usual. And there are so many people that will probably go through every single file just to know all the secrets and get to the bottom of this stuff. So what I did was something different for this episode, but there's a reason for it, and this is up to you. I'm going to show you the website, give you the link, and or at least tell you where to go, and you can look through all these files if you choose. But I did something different. I've seen a lot of people online. They do this thing on social media where they say I asked ChatGPT or Grok or whatever this question, and this is what it said, and they read the response. Well, I had an in-depth back and forth with ChatGPT, getting to the bottom of these files and giving it all of the links to all of the files that it needed to go through. And it came up with a pretty much a summary of everything. And when I read through it, it was pretty much everything I kind of already knew. So I wasn't surprised. It was just now backed by evidence that was released by the government, finally admitting that this is true, which many people already knew. So we're going to go through that. I'll first show you the link, or at least, where to go for the files so you can read them all on your own if you want. Then I'm going to go through the actual information that ChatGPT gave me. We'll hit some highlights, some points, and then we will take a look at this timeline of the events. The other thing I want to say too is, and I'm going to get into this in a future video also, about how AI is affecting people in ways that they don't even realize yet. We'll get into that in a future video. Well, what I want to say is because people are very split on this. There are people who love the AI, they're all in it, and then there are people who hate it and want nothing to do with it. Both are true in a sense that, it's nice to not have anything to do with that stuff and just be free of it. It's also nice to use it to your advantage, and technology is continuing to evolve, so we're going to have to keep up with it. Otherwise, we will get pushed out of the economy and other factors of life. But there are also people who they either worship it, where it's again like their god, and they're all in it. They're techies. And then there are people who hate it and think it's the Antichrist. What I would tell people to do in life is everything around us is a tool. Maybe not everything, but most things are a tool for our use. If it's created by man, it's definitely a tool for our use because we made it for us. If it's created by a God, it may or may not be, but more than likely it is because God created the world for us. So you can use things to your advantage without having it consume you. It's not about the tool you're using. It's about the person. It's about how they live their life, the decisions they make. Social media is a great thing if you use it appropriately. If you use it for information, for learning purposes, if you use it to connect with people that you haven't seen in a while or don't live near you, you don't have their phone number, or you just want to see what's going on in their lives and find a way to keep up with them in that way and continue to stay involved with other people as time goes on without always having a phone call and asking them everything they've done for the day or, whatever time period. It's a great tool for many different things. But when you sit there on the couch at 10 o'clock at night and doom scroll and look at everything out there in the world that's fake, but you don't know it's fake, what everybody has that you secretly want, what everybody's doing that you secretly want to do, and then believe all these lies that people are putting out there just to, get likes and follows and shares. That is now taking that tool and using it in a negative way where the tool's actually using you. It's consuming you, you're not consuming it. So everything can be a tool for good use if you use it appropriately. Nothing is inherently evil by itself, right? Especially a piece of something that we create. An inanimate object or a device or something cannot be inherently evil by itself. It's man's use of it that makes it evil, more immoral, whatever, depending on whatever it is. So we decide if it's a good thing or a bad thing. A gun is a great thing if you're starving and you need to hunt and get food for your family. But it's a bad thing if you go out and, shoot up a school or something. It's not the tool, it's the person. It's how they're using the tool. A car is a great thing. But if you run over people and kill them, it's not a good thing in that moment. But it's a great thing if you have to get 300 miles in a few hours. So just try to remember that for the future because technology is continuing to evolve. You have AI now, you have cryptocurrency, you have the whole Web3 ecosystem, and then you're going to have robots within the next 10 years actually being out there in society, being on the streets, being part of the workforce, the labor force, maybe working in warehouses, which, by the way, we already have robots. We just don't call them robots because they don't look like the robots from the movie iRobot. A dishwasher is a robot. It's a machine that cleans your dishes. That's a robot. A refrigerator keeps your food cold. That's a robot, by the way. It's an inanimate object that works on electronics and computer chips and all kinds of technological things that performs a task for us. It's a robot. We just don't look at it that way and call it a robot. But we have been living with robots for a very long time. And you have people out there that are afraid of the future of robots walking the streets when we've had robots replace so many things in our lives. People back in the day used to wash clothes on an actual washboard. Literally it was like a ruffled piece of tin that people used to rub clothes against after they soaped them up to get stains out and just to clean them. And they did that by hand. That was replaced by a washing machine and a dryer, right? Those are robots. We've been living with robots forever. So it's not, don't look at the object as the bad thing. At one point, people thought cars were evil because they were going to replace horses and they thought that it was going to change the world where, it's going to put so many people out of business and out of work. It ended up actually increasing jobs because now there were more things that people could do and get done since they had a car to be able to do it quicker. So yeah, AI and robots and things like that might make certain jobs obsolete, but that's just because the economy is evolving away from those jobs anyway, but it's going to open up a whole bunch of new jobs. So with everything that dies off, something else blooms and grows. That's the way life works. It's the cycle of life. And we're never going to be out of jobs because as long as there's people on earth and things need to get done, we're always going to need to do things and we're always going to need to pay somebody for their good or service. That's just the way it is. Those things might just change a little bit over time, but we still need a lot of the same things and have since the beginning of time. If you look into, like, if you're looking for job security, look for things that have always been here and won't go away probably ever. The real estate industry, people are always going to need housing. The food industry, people are always going to need to eat, drink water and stuff. We're going to always need people to, do all kinds of things associated with those. The distribution of food, uh, maintaining properties, landscaping, things like that, plumbing, all kinds of trades jobs. There's a lot of job security out there that you just have to look throughout time and see those things have always existed no matter the technological advancement that we made. So I'll get into that deeper in another video. Only thing I want to stress now is it's okay to use technology. It's okay to use any tool as long as you're using it appropriately and for your advantage, not disadvantage. That's the main thing. But I don't mind using AI. I don't like relying on AI to tell us how to think or to give us facts and then just believe that fact as definitive. I like to utilize AI in a very specific way where I can back up what it's giving me with other sources and confirm whether or not that's true. Or I could give it a specific assignment and it does the assignment for me in a quicker period of time than I could do it myself or have other people do it. And that's exactly like this. You could feed it a bunch of files and say, hey, give me a summary of these files, or give it a book. Hey, give me a summary of the book. It's going to read that book much faster than you, and it's going to give you the cliff notes in a quicker period of time than you could read the cliff notes themselves, let alone the book. So you can use AI to your advantage and to do these type of tasks. Just don't rely on it to tell you how to think or what to think or believe every fact it spits out. Now, with that said, I saw a lot of people doing this and I said, you know what, that might be a good idea. Let me give it this assignment. And by the way, there's been many things I've asked these AI things about and they've got it wrong. And I've proven that they've got it wrong by backing it up with other sources and other facts and scientific evidence and confirming that they're not right. So these things are in a beta test mode. They're not ready yet, but they're getting there. They're evolving and they're getting better. one day they will eventually replace most of the resources we use to learn, and we will gravitate more towards using them for getting information really quickly, much quicker than we used to, even with just a Google search. And Google's going to seem outdated in the next 5 years. It's going to seem like the newspaper to us, which is crazy to think. But Google is just a search engine that brings you the to links of, you know, articles or websites or whatever information that you're looking for, but it does it in a way that's designed to show you the stuff that's most popular, or has the most ad revenue backing, or is already the most, getting the most traction, even if it's not true, or even if there are better sources out there. So even Google is flawed, and we've been using it for like 20 years now. But the AI stuff is going to make that seem like the Stone Age to us, because it's going to bring all the facts and information and resources to you. And by the way, you could also do this too with the AI. You could have them send you sources that they're getting the information from. Rather than just listening to their information, you could actually have them source back to you where they got it from, then go follow the link and check out that source yourself to confirm whether or not it is true or it is validated. There's a lot in that, and I'm going to talk more about that in a future episode, probably the next one, where we dive into AI, fake AI videos, and we're going to take a look at some of the stuff that's happening there and a lot of the different categories that they're doing it with now, which is really interesting to me because I'll get into that in a future episode. But for now, we're going to take a look at, like I said, the National Archives. We'll start with that, and then we'll dive into the actual files. So this is the website where you can find the actual files. There's about 230,000, like I said, but this is the National Archives. It's actually archives.gov, and you could literally just search right here in the search bar, Martin Luther King files, or you can go records. You could type this into the search bar and probably pull it right up. Records related to the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., or you could even just do a Google search and it'll bring it up for you. But it'll give you a little information about it, talk about the 2025 release, and then here are the files. If you go down here on the bottom, you can see there's 631 pages, and each one has a bunch of PDFs on it. And then if you click on a PDF, you will see the actual document in a PDF form. Now, like I said, these are really illegible documents. They're hard to read. They're, not that good because they weren't digitized back in the day. This is the 60s and 70s, and everything was handwritten out, maybe typed up on a typewriter or faxed over to somebody. Yeah, these are, and that was probably even later, the fax. These are pretty much how they look. I mean, some of them are different. Some of them are different and actually look like this with a bunch of words on them. And you could read it a little bit, situation information report, but it's kind of hard to read. Some stuff's manually redacted, because back in the day that's what they did. They'd just cross it out with like a black magic marker or something. And you can also see like things are misprinted or written in sometimes with actual pen ink. So it's not the easy stuff to read. It's very daunting, and if it's something that you're interested in doing, you could definitely do that on your own time. But we're going to take a look now at my conversation with ChatGPT, and this is what it had to say. So this is, as you can see, is ChatGPT, and this is the breakdown of everything here that we discussed. It's a summary. Actually re-uploaded it in there so we could take a look at it, but I have some notes here. I'll be going through them, and then I'll show you on the screen where I'm referencing this, because this is something that I had that you can't go search this online. But yeah, this is the breakdown of it. So you have 230,000 page plus of the Martin Luther King Jr. files, newly released July 21st, 2025, declassified by Executive Order 14176, signed by Trump, January 25. So the documents include documents from the FBI, CIA, Department of State, DOJ, and digitized for the first time, made available in a central online repository with minimal redactions. So that's basically what we have with the National Archives website that I just showed you. But as you can see here, mostly digitized for the first time. Again, many of these files were never put in digital form until now, which also you have to understand too, that takes time. Like, people were harping on Trump for a while to release the files. But if you have 230,000 pages of something that is already hard to read in its original form, how do you properly digitize it and then put it on a platform to release it to the public? That takes, you know, probably hundreds of man hours to do. So it's understandable why it took so long for some of these files to get released, especially if they were being put into digital form for the first time ever now. The files stem from years of internal investigation and surveillance, largely driven by the FBI's probe into Dr. King's 1968 assassination, as well as earlier surveillance connected to COINTELPRO operations targeting King and the civil rights movement. Now, that's actually true. And this is one of the earliest cases of where, the COINTELPRO, I guess you can call it like an operation, was first successfully done at a high level. So this was being tested by the FBI and the government, maybe the CIA too, for a little bit of time in the 50s and the early 60s. But this case might be one of the biggest times that it was successfully or, semi-successfully put into effect at a high level. And we'll get into what that is in a minute, but this is something that Alex Jones has been talking about forever. Many people who have been in this conspiracy industry for quite a long time before a lot of these young TikTokers today that just started doing this a couple of years ago, they've been talking about this as a thing that the government actually does against its own people, and we'll get into what that is in a minute. But these operations are still being used today and is evident by some of the many crazy things that have gone on just over the last, 10 to 12 years with Donald Trump running for government, for president, and a lot of the things that the deep state has tried to throw at him or some of the people around him, and just some of the big events that had gone on that were likely staged or put together to create turmoil and controversy between the American people, but also to pit them against Trump and just so many deep things. But I'm not going to get into all that now. I'm just going to read what we have here. But now we'll learn a little bit more about that, you know, in a little while, but you could read that on your own time. But that stuff is true. It does happen, and the government is guilty of that. The problem is no one's being held accountable, which means it's going to continue to happen even after Trump's gone, by the way. Additional documentation includes CIA intelligence, cables, foreign agency communication, and State Department files related to the extradition of James Earl Ray from the UK, who's the person that they accused of killing Dr. Martin Luther King. Files detailed records of the FBI's COINTELPRO campaign, portraying Dr. King as a subversive threat under suspicion of communist influence. Narrative later debunked by the Justice Department. An infamous 1964 letter from the FBI urging King to take his own life. So we're going to relate some of this stuff to what's going on today also. Dr. King's death in Memphis in April 1968. James Earl Ray acted alone in previous investigations. The 1977 DOJ review found no verifiable government conspiracy. So there's contradictions there because later we get into where there is some evidence of a possible conspiracy, but they kept going back and forth and sort of debunking it. And that could just be that they were actually debunking it or they were intentionally trying to cover that up and eliminate it as a possibility from this situation so that they can close the case and accuse this one person, convict them, and then everybody goes home saying, we caught the bad guy. This is the most comprehensive release of MLK related federal records to date, involving a massive digitization effort coordinated by the DOJ, ODNI, CIA, FBI, and NIRA. The release underscores past abuses of federal power under Hoover-era FBI leadership. So that's actually important because, okay, so we'll talk about some of those parallels now. Take a look at the Comey situation, where Trump was saying when he was in office the first time that Comey was corrupt, that he was, involved in shady things and, might have been conspiring against him. And sure enough, here we are, his second term, and they're going after Brennan and Comey for conspiracy against President Trump's campaign and trying not to make him not get elected in 2016 and then again in 2020 and even 2024, the 2020 time in which they were successful. But they also tied former President Obama into that and said that he was the kingpin of it all. He was the center of it, and he was the one that was basically heading the charge. And Trump made that accusation for a while. Now they actually are going through everything because they have the right people in the FBI and the Justice Department and different people like that. And they're able to actually get the evidence they need to prove conspiracy. And Tulsi Gabbard just recently released a bunch of information confirming they have, you know, undoubtable evidence that Obama was involved and that he was sort of the, ringleader of this. He was running the show. Now, Obama is not a generational bureaucrat. So I wouldn't believe that he's the only person behind it or that he's the head of it, but he was probably leading the charge from a certain extent because he had so much, you know, amassed so much power over the last, 20 years or 15 years. And he is, at least was for a while, by all accounts, the leader of the Democrat Party that everybody would sort of default to on any given situation. So that stuff is not new. And these documents confirm it, but we've known this for a while. The Hoover era was when J. Edgar Hoover was running the FBI, and there was a lot of talks about him being corrupt and doing shady things. And sure enough, these documents confirm that. So if Hoover was involved in this conspiracy to take down Martin Luther King and create a civil rights issue in America and even a race war, and that was back 60 plus years ago. What makes you think that it's not happening still today with more technology, these people even further embedded in the government, years of them, you know, spreading their tentacles of corruption across many different departments of government? Of course, it's still happening today. So there's a lot of parallels from yesteryear and today that, you know, go hand in hand and show that, life does sort of not maybe not always repeat or rhyme or whatever, but things do happen over and over again. It's a reality that we do have to understand. Yes, there are conspiracies, and there are people who are involved in bad things and conspiring against people. And, the Bible talks about how it's a spiritual battle and we wrestle for power and control. And of course, this is, our sinful human nature. So it does happen, and conspiracies are real. My whole thing is just don't get so deep in them that they consume your life and then you can't actually live or do anything or make a positive impact on this world. So this is an overview of the assassination investigation itself. He was assassinated on April 4th, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. Gunshot wound to the jaw and neck, so he got shot in the head. Then James Earl Ray was arrested in June 8th of 1968. He pled guilty in 69 and avoided a jury trial, which is another big factor because you always want to have a jury trial. Because even if you plead guilty, but you're innocent, there's a chance the jury is going to pick up on that. And there's a chance with the two lawyers going back and forth and putting people on the stand and corroborating evidence and trying to get to the bottom of it, that the fact that you're innocent will turn up regardless of whether or not you pleaded guilty. So a lot of times if people do not want a chance of you getting off, they will try and make you avoid a trial, a jury trial. And that's for a very, very specific reason that I just mentioned, is that with a jury trial, you're having a jury of your peers, which really is not the same way it used to be, but 12 individuals that are obligated on a moral level as well as a legal level to decide whether or not you're guilty or innocent. And the gravity of that, everybody thinks they can do, and it seems fine. But then when you're actually in that room, it becomes real. And you realize that you have the fate of a person in your hands. And whatever the decision, you're going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. That actually haunts people sometimes. So they convinced him to plead guilty and avoid a jury trial. But then he later recanted, saying that he wasn't guilty and that he was manipulated by a mysterious figure named Raul. So, who's Raul? Is that a CIA operative? Is it FBI? Is it somebody else? We don't know. We just know that even the person who was, and this has happened pretty much every time with people who were lone gunmen, they tend to always, not always, but many times, say that they, were set up by somebody or somebody else was involved in sort of, pulling their strings. Or sometimes it's an MK Ultra operation and they were brainwashed and they don't know what happened. He died in prison 30 years later, 1998, and efforts to reopen the case persisted for decades. So this is something I found interesting, which tells me it probably wasn't him working by himself. And who knows, he might have even been a CIA asset himself. And this does happen, and this parallels to the Jeffrey Epstein situation now, which we'll get into a little bit more in a bit. But the FBI tracked his escape path. He went from Atlanta, Georgia to Canada to the UK. Kind of unusual. There's a lot quicker way to get to the UK from all the way down south in Georgia, but okay, that's what he did. The important part that I noticed was it says that he used aliases, passport fraud, and even plastic surgery to evade capture. Now you got to think about the context. It's 1968, 69. Most people at that time didn't even know what plastic surgery really was. And if they did know, it was incredibly risky. It was something that really was not even close to as good as it is today, where just about everybody's doing it. Even social media influencers are doing it. They could, not even have like a lot of money or a lot of following, and they're doing it because they think they need it for, the internet. But back then, it was extremely rare to get plastic surgery, and at that time, it wasn't that good. So for this person to do that and to think to do that, to not get caught, that brings up a red flag in my mind. Because at that time, the only people that probably were really doing that type of stuff were high level government officials in the CIA or other government departments, even in other countries, their own CIAs. It was very uncommon for the average person to do that. I would say it would make sense if he was a CIA operative and sort of had some insight as to how the CIA does things that he would think to do that. But it almost seems like something that somebody in a movie would do who's like a CIA agent gone rogue, and they know the only way to evade the other CIA agents is to use their tactics against them. No one's thinking at this time in the 60s to do plastic surgery, get your face reconstructed to evade the police and not get caught. You probably would just wear a disguise. So that was an interesting thing that I noticed. And yeah, it's a possibility that he was actual, uh, government secret agency asset. Then we have the weapon evidence. The murder weapon was a Remington 3006 rifle traced to Ray. Documents include FBI ballistic test and analysis, tying the rifle to the bullet and to Ray's fingerprints on the scope and rifle box. Now, again, we've all seen spy movies. We've heard things over, you know, decades of the internet releasing files and documents to us. There's a chance that they could have set him up. There's a chance that they could have framed him. There's a chance that they could have lifted his fingerprint from somewhere else and put it on this. We don't know. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm just saying it's a possibility that he was framed, which is would make sense as to why he pled guilty and then recanted that guilty plea. Now we're going to get into this part, which follows up on that. Some memos consider alternative theories or other persons of interest, but ultimately circle back to Ray. A few internal notes speculate about organized involvement. So it went from he's the only one, he's the lone gunman, to actually there could be other parties involved, or actually it could be an organized involvement, which would mean an operation where they either set him up or he was involved in the operation, but they made him the fall guy. We don't know. But there was evidence at some point that assumed or speculated that there was a larger involvement. And anytime there is that evidence, it has to be investigated deeply to make sure. That's why a lot of the times they try to get rid of the gunman immediately and don't let him go to jail because there's a chance that he'll crack under pressure and tell the truth. And then it'll link back to the people that are involved, and they'll end up either getting, in trouble, or they'll be faced with a really difficult situation. The files reflect how persistent the King family and allies were in requesting reinvestigations. The 1999 civil trial, King family versus Lloyd Jowers, is referenced in post 1990 DOJ notes. The trial ruled that there was a conspiracy, but the U.S. government never formally adopted that finding. So even the trial originally ruled it was a conspiracy, but then later the government said, oh, it wasn't. So this is either a really long cover up, or it is what it is, and there was evidence of other things, and it just wasn't enough to actually support that claim and convict on that. But also, too, you have to understand something that a lot of the Epstein people are fanatical about is that they they think that there's some secret room in all these places that has all the files, exposing all the secrets and getting all of the evidence that everybody needs to prove exactly who did what. And you have to be realistic in life. You have to realize that in what world would a guilty person who has evidence against themselves keep that evidence long term? They're going to destroy it. And that's probably what happened in many of these cases. So you probably will never get to the bottom of some of these situations because the evidence has been destroyed. And the only thing that remained was the typical stuff that wasn't incriminating to anybody other than the parties that they decided were the guilty parties or the fall people. And, you can't have no files. You can't have all the files destroyed because then it would be like, where did everything go? So then now it's like somebody clearly is intentionally destroying files, which means there is a conspiracy, and we do have to continue to investigate this. So what do? They just destroy the files that are actually incriminating or link back to the actual guilty parties. Um, and that's the reality of these things. The MLK files, the JFK files, the Epstein files, you're probably never going to actually get to the bottom of that because the people who are responsible for holding those files are also the people who are allegedly in on it. Why would they keep incriminating files against themselves? That's ridiculous. And I've explained this in previous videos, so you could check out my previous video about the Epstein files talking in more detail about that, but it's highly unlikely you're going to ever get anything that's really, really deeply incriminating and is like the golden gun, like we got him. Um, it's just not going to happen. But there was some belief there was a conspiracy, and a trial even considered it. So now we'll get into a little bit about what COINTEL is. COINTELPRO, Counterintelligence Program, was a secret FBI initiative launched by J. Edgar Hoover in 1956 to disrupt and neutralize groups deemed subversive, initially targeting communists, later expanding to include civil rights groups, black nationalists, and anti-war activists. So this was a operation that was created by the FBI, by the United States government in the 50s, where you basically tricked your own American people and used things against them to get them to do what you wanted them to do. And look at the many events over the last couple of years or decades. Look at the many movements that we've seen across this country. How many of those do you think were influenced by the FBI or the CIA or some government organization as part of a COINTELPRO program? I guess we'll never know, but just next time you see one of them pop off, think about it. It might be a setup. It might be the whole thing might be staged and fake to pull people into it and then make it a real movement and then make people believe that it's actually a thing when in fact nobody was doing that or thinking that before the government set it up and made us think it. So sometimes that happens. One of the most infamous COINTELPRO operations, 1964 anonymous letter to Dr. King by the FBI, along with the audio tapes allegedly capturing extramarital affairs. The letter implicitly urged King to kill himself to avoid public humiliation. They went around and, you know, bugged his hotel rooms, tapped his phone calls, and they did it a lot of the time without court authorization, meaning no warrants. They didn't have a warrant to do that. FBI agents monitored him and even his clergy members. So now they're monitoring just churchgoers who they don't even have warrants to do this. And they're no longer, also too, when you get a warrant, you can monitor the person who you think is the suspect. And if other people are with them, you can monitor them too. But you can't go around monitoring other people that are affiliated with them unless those parties are guilty of the crimes that they're guilty of, and you're going to take them all down together. The FBI was probably monitoring people just around King to see if they could manipulate somebody against him or what they could get on, from his peers about him. Who knows? And think about that. They sent him a letter urging him to kill himself, and they used blackmail against him by catching him apparently having affairs and then telling him, hey, we got you having these affairs. Best thing to do is kill yourself so that this doesn't get out because it's going to ruin your reputation as you know, a reverend and, a church going man and a godly man. And he obviously didn't do it. So somebody, I guess, took him out. But look at the parallel with Jeffrey Epstein. People were saying for the longest time he was murdered. And then people were saying, well, Cash Patel and Jan Bongino specifically said, we looked at the evidence, he killed himself. And I said in my previous video, there's a chance he did kill himself. I'm not saying that he definitely did, but there's a chance he did because somebody might have blackmailed him and gave him the option, kill yourself, or this is going to happen, and this is going to come out, or this is going to happen, or we're going to do this to you. There's a chance he took that option and said, okay, I'd rather control it myself than have somebody else do it for me or have this thing happen, which is even worse, my reputation, my money, my this, my that, whatever. So don't be surprised if sometimes these people get killed. It's not always a murder. Sometimes it's an encouraged suicide. And some of the people take them up on that offer. The FBI attempted to plant stories in the media, both anonymously and through friendly journalists. Interesting. Where did the whole fake news thing come from? Trump has been talking about this for decades, where he said the media was fake, they were in bed with the government, and they're promoting things that Democrats want and that favor them, and you know not promoting stuff for Trump, and it's clearly biased. And so he called them the fake news for a while, and then eventually he got back in. Elon got in Doge. They discovered through USAID they were actually funneling money to some media companies in order to influence certain things. And that will probably get really looked into a lot further to where they do actually find conspiracy against Trump and his previous elections to try and, do election meddling. And if that actually is uncovered in today's world, there's a chance that some people could actually be arrested and charged and convicted for those crimes. And Trump has said that too, about how that's the thing he's focusing on right now is the election that was stolen in 2020 that he claims was stolen in 2020. And the one that they tried to, not let happen in 2016 and 2024. And they've done all these things. And he's saying, stop worrying about the Epstein files. I'm focusing on a conspiracy in the government to actually have one president lose and one president win, which is a complete subversion of our rights, our constitutional rights, and our free elections and our constitutional republic as a whole, and the way that this system works. I understand certain things are important to people, but in due time, you know, we'll have justice if that's what God wants. But this is a big issue. If this doesn't get exposed, this could happen again and again and again until eventually we no longer have free elections. And then America's not free anymore. The government decides who your president is, and whether or not you like it, that's who you live with. So I think it's definitely important Trump focuses on that right now first. Suggested King had close ties to communist organizations or individuals, claimed he was siphoning funds to engage in illicit behavior. And then some of these media outlets were actually conservative media outlets that they were feeding this stuff to and were putting these rumors out. So Also, too, parallel to this time, this whole fake news thing is not new. The news has been not an extension of the government, but they've been in bed with the government for a very long time. And they have been, you know, biased and putting out information that favors one candidate over another or one political party over another. These things do happen. This is nothing new. It's just finally all coming to the surface where the people are actually getting to see it in real time and, hopefully get justice. The FBI even forged letters between activists attempting to incite distrust between them, MLK and others in the civil rights movement. One tactic was to pit more radical groups like the Black Panthers against King's non-violent platform, painting him as a government pawn or a sellout. Now, this happened a long time ago, so many people don't know, but that was a big deal at that time. They actually did do that. The Black Panthers were at one point against King, and they were against his movement, and they said that he was going the wrong way and that he was being a sellout because he was nonviolent. They were saying, no, we need violence. That's the only way we're going to get change in this country. That was clearly something that was set up by the FBI to pit them against each other to create a bit of a war. When have they done that again in history, including the modern day? The actions were unconstitutional and conducted without proper judicial oversight. The 1976 Church Committee and subsequent DOJ investigations confirmed the FBI grossly abused its power. So the DOJ, the Department of Justice, confirmed the FBI abused its power, and they still let the FBI continue to go on and continue to do their job, and nobody was convicted over it. That's a problem, revealing how far the Bureau went to psychologically manipulate both King and the public. Example, this disinformation campaign was an early and chilling example of domestic psychological warfare waged by a U.S. agency against its own citizens. That's treason. In late 1964, the FBI anonymously sent King a package containing tapes of his private behavior and a threatening letter implying that he should commit suicide or be exposed. So, again, that's blackmail and that's also illegal. The FBI shows that this letter was approved at the highest levels of the FBI with Hoover's direct involvement, which means that J. Edgar Hoover was involved in this and had signed off on it, which makes him either an accomplice or the guilty party, the one that actually put all this together. So that's pretty much it. Goes on to talk a little bit more about some of the personal stuff and how King never actually commented on this situation. And, really nothing too much different than what we talked about, but those were the key highlights. Last thing I want to wrap up with is the timeline of events, which I will try and zoom in so we can see, just to give everybody an idea as to how things went from what year to what year. Timeline of events, 1963 all the way down to 2025 when the files were released. I'm not going to read everything. You had the March through August FBI surveillance. See, this is the thing too about this is the thing too about ChatGPT and these AI things. They don't always know how to decipher certain words from another document, so they literally copy how it looks, or they just make up words because they're flawed. It was like for a little while they were adding fingers to people's hands in videos, or making them like miss a leg or something. It was like the system was incomplete. Well, it's gotten a lot better with visuals and stuff, but it still happens with words, just so you know. So if you ever use this stuff for document creation, always double check your work and edit it and make sure that everything's correct. But this is like a made up word. I think it's trying to say intensifies, which it copied from probably a semi-redacted document that was not that legible, like I said. So it's literally copying over the illegibility of it into its thing that it's creating. So it's not totally there yet, but pretty good for, what it was able to find us. Following his letter from Birmingham jail, I have a dream speech, FBI receives internal approval of the wiretap King, and then it just goes through the sequence of events, which you can read all this yourself, but I actually kept a copy of it. And if anybody is interested and they want a copy of this timeline of events, just put, timeline, MLK timeline in the comment section or, private message me and I will send you the PDF free. You could have it. It's yours. So that's pretty much it for this video. Just wanted to do a rundown of the MLK files. Like I said, This would be an interesting approach. See how we could utilize AI in our favor for something that's very tedious and time consuming, and get to the bottom of some of the stuff that we've been wanting to know, but also not get sucked into a rabbit hole and waste a lot of our time. Just get quick answers, find out, and move on with your life. And that is something that I think more people should do rather than getting so deep into these conspiracies. There's nothing wrong with knowing the truth. Just don't let it consume you, because then that becomes your God, and it becomes the false idol in your life that replaces God. And God says you cannot serve two masters at once. So you got to pick one. There's a lot of young people today in their 20s on TikTok going down these deep rabbit holes with all these conspiracy people, and it's consuming their life, and it's making them even radicalized in some situations. My recommendation, don't be one of those people. Don't get roped in and let it consume you. Just find out, get to the answers that you're looking for, and move on with your life. And that's pretty much what I hope this video did for you. Gave you information about the MLK situation, a nice overview. You got to hear some interesting facts and takes, and now you can go home and move on with your life. Spend time with your family, work hard, live a good life. Don't let these things consume you. But that's it for this video. And like I always say, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff helps the channel grow. Channel's growing well. Very happy with everybody's engagement. I hope that this is bringing you value and giving you a different take on things that maybe not many people, if any, on the internet are doing. Try to keep this as unique and different as possible. Sometimes it's hard because there's like breaking news and things that come out that are just very pressing that, I know people want additional takes on. And I try to give my opinion that's hopefully a little different than the norm. So, just trying to mix it up with a little bit of what is, popular, and then also unique stuff that not everybody's doing. So hopefully it's interesting. Hopefully you guys find value in it. And if you do, do all that stuff, like, subscribe, share. But that's it for this video. And then don't forget to stay for the ad at the end. Take a look at my children's book. It's on sale now. Our apparel shop, which percentage of the profits go to charity, and Amazon storefront, some stuff we have on there that we recommend. But that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son, and it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. We highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, buy a children's book as a gift. Definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state, and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throw in your own, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, put on a better party. Health and wellness items here. even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop, and these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodssoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag, and it says free, and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two, and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms: Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post, and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future. And I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.